Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Ekadantaya Vidamahe Vakrutandaya Dhimahi Tanno Danti Prachodayate. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrishyam Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavaditum Trigunadahitam Sadguru Tam Namami. Bhavaditum Trigunadahitam Sadguru Tam Namami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. So today's practice is entitled Japa, developing devotion. We need an unfailing friend, a relationship that is always dependable, I can always count on. Why? Because as a human being, I'm endowed with a certain freedom, and that is the freedom to choose, to act in the world, to be a doer, and to enjoy or suffer the results of what comes my way. So this is an incredible privilege, a very rare privilege, the scripture says. And as a result of that is that I'm destined to the memory of what I did, commission, and along with that, what I did not do, or omission. Inevitably, this manifests as what we're very much familiar with, of feeling guilty and shameful, meaning that in the flow or traffic of life, there was a kind of unconscious buildup that took place, or the lack of understanding or developing an inner spaciousness. So in the flow of life's processes, I had to act, to make a choice. And I find that in that process, inevitably, I end up feeling I'm all wound up. I feel myself in a kind of bind, or a kind of buildup has taken place. The need for release. So my whole attitude in interacting with the world at this point is one where I've got my boxing gloves on and I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to tackle the world, or fight with the world, or overcome it, or somehow defeat the world. You know that phrase, the struggle is real. We use such phrases like that in our speech. So this is how we get ourselves into this kind of condition. So there's a need for this unwinding or release from the buildup. Hence, the need for a listening friend. Ability to unwind. an ability to open up and release this sense of feeling, why did I do this? Why did I not do this? And the inevitable feeling of shokam, grief. The difficulty we find in this is that the relationships we have, they always change. Who am I relating to is also a human being, a conscious being, who is subject to this law of cause and effect, who's subject to also the instrument of mind and this freedom of choice and the unconscious buildup that takes place as one thought flows to the next unknowingly. So this relationship is something like one wave relating to another wave. The one wave may be much bigger, wave may be a lot smaller. There may be some clashing between them, some splashing, where one dissolves. So there's a continual change there. It can be difficult to depend or to develop a sense of trust, though we must try to do our best. But there's one relationship, I tell you, that will never change in this embodiment. And that is your relationship with Ishvara, the whole, the universe, the guiding principle, God, if you would like to use that word. That relationship, while you have this body, mind, sense complex, will never change. How is that? That relationship is something like the wave, my person, and the ocean. That relationship is always going to be there. Even if I crash and break into the shore and fall apart into froth and foam, so many different bubbles, my relationship with that one body of water is the same. So this is an infallible relationship, a trusting relationship. So what are we doing this morning? Why have we gathered here? It's because the practice of meditation, in this case Japa, is a practice that highlights this special relationship, nourishes it, brings it to life. Practically speaking, it's recognizing that I am never alone, that I always have an unfailing friend, that there's a relationship that is infallible, guaranteed, and that can give me strength, give you inner strength. So how do we do that? What does the practice of Japa look like? In the practice of Japa, we take up and use what is called mantra. Mantra is a mind tool. Mantra is technically known as mananat trayate iti mantraha. That which by sustained repetition, repeating a particular chant, protects you. So how is that? Two things. One is that we find that if we observe the flow of thought, one thought leads continually to the next. There's a cause-effect relationship there, and we find that the next thought, which springs into how we act or show up in the world, is always unknown. Difficult to predict. We were seeing this in the previous meditation. So inevitably there's that kind of buildup that takes place. A lack of feeling that I have some space to choose how I respond to the world. I feel that I am in that flight or fight or freeze mode as I interact with the world. So, why is japa important, or the repetition of the mantra? Firstly, it's because your next thought, your next action is known to you. It becomes known. You, as a human being exercising that privilege and freedom of choice, choose the mantra, and you know what is to come. So you have the chant in mind, Om. There's a space, and you nurture that space. You recognize that space. And then you begin the chant again. So, truly speaking, every single time you chant is complete in itself. And then you recognize that within you there's a spaciousness. You get the opportunity to observe how the mind moves, how the tendency is there for one thought to flow to another thought or make a connection. The tendency of the mind to become either distracted or disturbed. And you help guide the mind back or arrest that tendency of outward flowing mind by repeating the same mantra. And more importantly is those gaps between. You recognize that this buildup is actually something that takes effort. The underlying that is peace, which means that I don't have to gain peace. The space that is invariable between each single thought, each chant, is that quiet, blissful self, that presence, that consciousness, which is you. This is an incredible discovery. And secondly, by the practice of repeating the mantra, it protects us. How does it protect us? It nourishes this connection, this relationship to the whole, the Ishvara. Meaning that you get an opportunity, or you invoke the opportunity to no longer be helpless, but recognize that you have help, that you can count on this unfailing friend. I would call it grace. So how are we doing that practically today? We'll be taking up some of the familiar steps, the prerequisites that we've been doing in meditation, such as our asana, stiram sukham asanam, our comfortable steady seat. We'll also be employing the practices of pranayama, but we're going to take up a special mantra that we repeat that will help us recognize that inner spaciousness and also relate to the whole. And that mantra is Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. What does that mean? Not only is mantra have a particular vibration, which we'll discuss in coming sessions, that invokes a healing power, but here this mantra also has a meaning, a meaning that I surrender my sense of isolation or limitations to the whole, to my supreme parents, Shiva and Shakti. And our parents were the first relationship we had, that there was no choice involved. We had to depend upon them. Similarly, here as a full-grown, mature adult, we nourish a relationship with the supreme parents, the parents that we find are unfailing, always available to relate to, and that is Shiva Shakti, which can be envisaged in so many ways. But here in our ashram, this is a way that resonates with us. So the mantra for that is Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. So I'll be chanting that at the end portion of our meditation, a repetition of 33 times, where we'll chant out loud which you can listen to or follow along. Then we'll also transition into a chanting that is whisper, where the chant begins to become absorbed and deepened. Then I'm going to allow a certain amount of time for space in which you can practice mental japa, or repetition of the chant in the inner space, just pure thought, which requires some practice, so it can be helpful to lead up to that, the mental chanting with a out loud chanting first, and then a whisper. So this is what we are doing, and the practice of developing devotion. Devotion here, or bhakti here, meaning that I recognize my relationship to the whole. So I hope you're ready for practice. Let us get to it. So we'll be spending the next 30 minutes committed to keeping the body in a particular alignment. An alignment which invokes our best health, an alignment which frees the mind from the tendency to becoming drawn down to the aches and pains or difficulties we face in the body. So the first step in that is developing our asana. So wherever you're at, whether it be on the mat or on a chair, make those necessary adjustments so that you can hold the head, your neck, and chest upright, following the natural curve of your spine. So please take that time. It could look like rolling your shoulders up and back a few times, warming up the hands, moving the head from side to side gently. Just a few adjustments so that you really feel you've developed a maximum base and a certain level of comfortability in your body as best as you can. So we want to develop that first, as we'll be holding the body still for the remainder of practice. And a few small things that can be done that go a long way in aiding our stability is the way in which we hold the hands rested on the knees. Maybe it's a sukha mudra, a comfortable spaciousness in our palms as they rest on the knees. Or you may practice in your own form, in another mudra. Maybe it's just the hands clasped together, resting in the lap. That's perfectly okay. You'll feel that sense of lifting from the top of the head, maybe a subtle downward tilt of the chin in an energetic way, signaling a going within in the practice of meditation. And when you're ready, we gently begin to close our eyes, softly allowing the eyes to close, body upright and still. For focus purposes, as your eyes are resting in the inner space, you can keep them at the eyebrow center, or Bhrumadhya. The eyes aren't crossed or strained, but you just give them a place to rest. Preventing the distraction. When the eyes are held still, you'll find that stillness translates to a stillness of the whole body. And the stillness of the whole body will aid in the stillness of mind. So just spend a few moments being comfortable in your own skin, holding the body still with the eyes focused at the eyebrow center. And as you maintain this posture, allow yourself to become aware of the environment that you're in, the space in which your body is held upright. You may acknowledge that as a particular sound that you hear in your space, whether it be the sound of the wind, or even the sound of traffic or the people that you share your space with. Whatever it may be, you're just acknowledging the environment while maintaining a still, comfortable posture. Let this relationship between your body and the space become your point of focus. You even become aware of a heightened sense of touch, feeling the pressure and tingling on the skin, the edge of the body in relationship to your space. You may track that as a particular pulsation, movement, or maybe as a temperature. You can't do this wrong, you're just observing what is. Whatever you feel. Creating a safe space to do that. And in the practice of meditation, we have that trustful surrender of not needing to change anything or fix anything per se, but learning how to become more observant, live in the light of awareness. So you notice what you feel as the body is held still and the gaze is focused at the eyebrow center. as the mind becomes acquainted with moving more in alignment with vibration or sensation, see if you can observe the sensation of your heartbeat. Noticing the rhythm of your heart. It may be difficult to feel or sense at first, but with practice, patience, you'll begin to notice and feel the continuous movement of the heart. Become aware of that activity. Which is currently being guided by that intelligent principle. Noticing the effortlessness in every beat. And you start to become aware of how that rhythm and vibration pulsates throughout the whole body. You might notice it as the pulse in your wrists, feeling that rhythm sync up with the beating of your heart. Listening to the music of the body. And learning to let the mind flow with that song. This truly helps us become more objective. Moving away from the tendencies of one thought to flow into the next, an unconscious build-up in the mind to feel weighed down by this activity. And instead giving the mind a place to rest that invokes our health, invokes our sensitivity, and nurtures our growth. So you feel that rhythm. You step into that rhythm. you also begin to notice the intelligence and pulsation of breath. Observing the flow of breath. Which requires no thought. You let the mind rest in the intelligence that manifests as this breath. First, just observing the outgoing and incoming breath. This breath is a manifestation of Ishvara. Supporting you. So we let our attention rest on the breath. As you begin to notice this flow of breath, we can practice pranayama, where we breathe out consciously, as if the breath is being offered to the space. You create an inner space, and when you're out of breath, without any strain or tension, you welcome the breath back, breathing in consciously. First, breathing out, feeling that wave-like motion as the diaphragm gently begins to pull in. And right at that cusp, where you're nearing completion, you breathe in naturally, feeling the wave-like motion as the diaphragm expands. The breath fills the lower body, the space of the chest, throat, and neck. You feel that the breath rises up. When you're full of breath, give it back, breathing out. Allow yourself to get comfortable with this smooth, flowing breath. a complete exhalation and a natural full inhalation. You're communicating with your energy and laying the groundwork for a mind that's free from distraction and disturbing thoughts. A mind field that's available for watching. If you feel any strain or tension, you can always release the control and go back to watching the breath, just observing the natural rhythm. Or continue with this smooth, conscious flow of breathing out and breathing in. This is called yogic breath. You feel as if it's the first time you've ever breathed. Aiding in this process of a settled and clear mind, we can also incorporate what's called samaveta pranayama. As you breathe out, you can pause and hold the breath outside. Notice that gap. No strain or tension. And whenever you're ready, you can comfortably welcome the breath back, inhaling, pausing, and holding the breath inside. Again, releasing the breath. Holding the breath outside. Breathing in. Holding the breath inside. So practice this way for a few moments. Getting comfortable with those spaces. In a very practical way, this form of pranayama invokes our best health by increasing the exchange of oxygen in our blood and purifying or removing the excess of carbon dioxide in the lungs. Simply put, we can revitalize our whole body and mind through pranayama. This is the way to do it. Breathing out, enjoying that space, feeling the mind settle into those pockets. Breathing in, holding the breath, and you can feel as if that prana that vibration touches to the edge of your skin, healing every part. Now just guiding your breath back to its natural flow as your body is held still upright, your attention focused between the eyebrows. Become aware of a subtle pulsation of breath, the sense of touch at that eyebrow center space. Letting the eyes rest in the inner space, or Chidakasha. This is the place where we can observe, watch the mind. The place where we can employ the mantra, the repetition of a chant that helps us guide the mind back. Recognize the peace that obtains, that we are, between every thought. And remembering our unfailing friendship and relationship with the whole. So for that, we take up the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. I'll begin to chant this mantra aloud and then in a whisper form, and you can enjoy or join me in that practice. Just listening to is a healing experience. But notice those spaces between each chant, the completion of the chant, the space between, and exercising that privilege of choice as we dive deep into that space, invoking the desire to chant again. Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. 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 Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Om Namah 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 Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Continue following that mantra, the vibration, to pure thought, a mental chanting. Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. So your body is still. Your attention is between the eyebrows. And you're at the level of pure thought, where you invoke the chant mentally, paying special attention to the space and guiding the mind back to the mantra. Then softly release the chant. Resting in that space, watching the inner space. Different thoughts, emotions, or feelings may arise, and you allow them to rise and fall. but you remain as a sakshi or witness to this inner world. You begin to recognize that invariable presence or consciousness that you are, in which the mind arises. And in which it settles. Be that light. That light which pours through the universe, the elements, the sun, moon, and stars. All sentient beings. It is the same light by which your mind, your thoughts are known. The Atman. Becoming aware of the quietness of mind. Recognize your smooth, flowing breath, the natural breath. And observe the stillness, the restfulness you feel in your body. And how your body is related and interconnected to your environment. And how you live this day, every day going forward, feeling related, connected. Living in that light. And when you're ready, gently begin to open your eyes. The practice of meditation is complete.